Heaps of gold galleons, stacks of silver sickles, piles of bronze nuts. Harry stood there and stared with his mouth open at the family vault. He had so many questions he didn't know where to start. From just outside the door of the vault, Professor McGonagall watched him, seeming to lean casually against the wall, but her eyes intent. Well, that made sense. Being plopped in front of a giant heap of gold coins was a test of character so pure it was archetypal.
Are these coins the pure metal?
Harry said finally.
What? What?
Hissed the goblin Griphook, who was waiting near the door.
Are you questioning the integrity of gringots, Mr. Potter Evan Verez?
No,
said Harry absently.
not at all. Sorry if that came out wrong, sir. I just have no idea at all how your financial system works. I'm asking if galleons in general are made of pure gold.
Of course,
said Griphook.
And can anyone coin them, or are they issued by a monopoly that thereby collects seigniorage?
What?
said Professor McGonagall. Griphook grinned, showing sharp teeth.
Only a fool would trust any but goblin coin.
In other words,
Harry said,
the coins aren't supposed to be worth any more than the metal making them up.
Griphook stared at Harry. Professor McGonagall looked bemused.
I mean, suppose I came in here with a ton of silver. Could I get a ton of sickles made from it?
For a fee, Mr. Potter Evans Verez.
The goblin watched him with glittering eyes.
For a certain fee. Where would you find a ton of silver, I wonder?
I was speaking hypothetically.
Harry said. For now, at any rate.
So, how much would you charge in fees as a fraction of the whole weight?
Griphook's eyes were intent.
I would have to consult my superiors.
I should have done a more Jewy one, but what can you do?
It sounds eerily similar to the ones in the movie.
Interesting. Really? Well, let's keep going.
Give me a wild guess. I won't hold gringots to it.
A 20th part of the metal would pay well for the coining.
Harry nodded.
Thank you very much, Mr. Griphook.
So not only is the wizarding economy almost completely decoupled from the Muggle economy, no one here has ever heard of arbitrage. The larger Muggle economy had a fluctuating trading range of gold to silver, so every time the Muggle gold to silver ratio got more than 5% away from the weight of 17 sickles to 1 galleon, either gold or silver should have drained from the wizarding economy until it became impossible to maintain the exchange rate. Bring in a ton of silver, change to sickles and pay 5%, charge the sickles for galleons, take the gold to the Muggle world, exchange it for more silver than you started with, and repeat.
Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. That was an excerpt, of course, from Liz's upcoming book, Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. I'm just kidding. It's not by Liz. It is by one of her headmates, Eliezer.
But before we get into any of that,
Okay, Yudkowsky.
I'm Liz.
My name is Bryce. We are, of course, joined by producer.
Young Chomsky.
And this is TrueAnon. Hello.
Warning. This episode will contain Infohazards.
Many Infohazards. Wee-oo.
Which is, I believe, kind of like a trigger warning.
To be fair, you did text me earlier and you basically got Roko'd.
I came up with a new basilisk, which I'll get to once we get to Rocco's basilisk, but I think I have Brace's basilisk. Brace's badass basilisk.
That's too many B. That's the triple B promise.
That's the triple B, baby. Yeah. I'm going to change. Here's the problem. the rational community has never seen a character like me. Has never met a brother like me before.
No, I
Because
think you are ready to square their circle.
I'm just like, I'm reading your stuff here. It seems a little bit kooky to me, but they seem very. I'm not saying you all. They all seem very crazy and horny, which I'm used to dealing with those types of people. There's all kinds of those people all over society. I think that today marks my entrance into the rational community, and I am battling, I think today, for the most rational man in America, if not the world, and if not the world, through maybe all of time and space.
Yeah, you're going into that battle with a katana sword. I think that you would break their brains. I genuinely think that you could, like, I think you could bring down whatever's left of the rational community by just being like, wait, I don't get that.
What are you talking about?
Over and over and over again.
Yeah,
like, I think you literally could, like,
sometimes I'm
dismantle them from the inside.
I have tried to get Eliezer Yudkowsky
I'm calling him Yudkowsky
on the show for literally years. You guys can attest to this. I have sent emails. I have replied to please DM me.
You sent an owl over there, Harry Potter style.
I sent an owl over there, Harry Potter style.
Or Hegel style, depending.
But he has never responded. In fact, I was denied by one of his bodyguards an email an exchange with him via email.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, his bodyguards check his email?
He has like a go-to guy. He had a guy. I'm sure I could just somehow get to him. But he'll talk to Time. He'll talk to Lex Friedman.
Do you think he leaves his house?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. I think he leaves his house and goes to other houses and has group sex.
But he doesn't like go to the store. I never saw him at the store. And I used to live like pretty close to all
I'm going to
that.
say he does leave his house, but not in the way that you might.
Okay.
You know, or like I might. I mean, this is the problem. I am a Pascal's wager and Newcomb's paradox basilisk atom bomb on the rational community because I am fundamentally at my core ultra rational and I don't get it.
Yes.
I don't get it.
I think you
What are
actually
you
literally just repeating. Wait, I'm sorry. I don't get that.
What the
over and
fuck?
over and over.
We were going to do an episode on the Rationalists. which
About a
we've kinda
different
done before.
rationalist cult, by the way.
Yes.
Which still exists, and I know who you are.
But we were going to do an episode on it like years ago,
Yeah.
but it was too annoying to read all this stuff. This time things are different. This time I was steeled and I read a lot. I've read a lot. And I don't get it. I don't get it. Because it seems to me like these are people who think that they're really smart, but also think kind of that video games are real, but also seem to work out basic like methods of human interaction and thinking in an almost like mathematical way that you or I would take for granted, which makes me feel a certain pity and sorrow in the pity about these kind of people. But also and I'm sorry, I got to say it, a repulsion.
Yeah.
It's a repulsion, I feel.
It
Because
was a repulsion he felt.
it's a repulsion I feel. And so listen, I just want to tell you out there, if you're listening out there and you're rational or you think you're fucking rational, first of all, Infohazard, you're actually maybe stupider than a regular person. I have to be honest with you. You might be dumber than a fifth grader because a lot of the stuff you guys are talking about is things that a child could do pretty much automatically. But I know that you're smart. I know that you're smart because you can type a lot. And I know that you're scared of AI and that AI, well, we'll get to that later, but you might just consider this, which you probably already have because you've considered everything. You might be AI or you might be functionally the same as AI, but unfortunately like one of the earlier AI models that just talked and maybe hallucinated a lot.
We are going to get into all of this. But before we do, we need to set the scene. Because this is not just a story about the rationalists, even though it kind of is in broad strokes. But also it's not.
It's a story about murder. Well, I shouldn't have led with that. It's a story about
No, it's about murder,
yeah,
mayhem,
another murder,
the The mainframe? I'm trying to think of M words.
Murder, mayhem, mainframe, Munchausen's.
Oh.
Maybe I'll go live on a boat. Maybe I'm a crazy motherfucker. Maybe everyone else is crazy and I'm the only sane one. Mayhem. We already did mayhem. And other things of the M nature.
Monday. Another M. January 20th. Maybe can we get some true crime music in for this?
I already noted true crime music.
Monday, January 20th. Inauguration Day. Blood at the border. 44-year-old U.S. Border Patrol agent David Chris. This is what that's tripping me up because I keep thinking of Ruth's Chris.
All right, pause the music really quick. I think his middle name is Chris.
I think that's I
think his name is David Chris.
No, but he goes by Chris. But whenever I see David Chris, I think Ruth's Chris, and then that's an info hazard for me because it just I can't
second
go
info hazard
because I can't go further.
You know, it was Chris's steakhouse and Ruth bought it.
I know, but it's crazy.
It is crazy.
Ruth's Chris.
Guys, we need to get to the murder. Start over. You didn't even get past his middle name.
44-year-old U.S. Border Patrol agent David Chris Mayland, another M word, arrived at what he thought was a routine stop in Coventry, Vermont, a sleepy town about 20 miles from the Canadian border. A U.S. Air Force veteran, formerly deployed to the southern border, now stationed at our northern border, on careful watch. David Chris... Sorry. Info hazard. David Chris had also survived 9/11.
Another info hazard.
As a young man, he was a security guard at the Pentagon and helped secure the building on that fateful day. But he wouldn't survive the crisis at our nation's border. In fact, he'd been the first Border Patrol agent killed by gunfire in the line of duty in over a decade. The last thing he saw, a 2015 Prius and a .40 caliber Glock held by a strange woman.
Officer David Chris Mayland was shot and killed in an officer-involved getting shot incident with two suspects, Teresa Youngblood from Washington State and Felix Bauchalt, a German national on what the FBI referred to, until Monday, as an expired H-1B visa.
Felix Bauchalt was declared dead at the scene. David Chris was rushed to the hospital, but pronounced dead some hours later.
Homeland Security had been surveilling, their words, Felix and Teresa for nearly a week. They had received numerous reports from locals concerned about the two carrying weapons and wearing all black, tactical-style clothing with protective equipment. They'd made contact and were rebuffed, until January 20th, when the observing agents saw them purchase aluminum foil and begin wrapping their cell phones.
News spread like a Palisades wildfire on Inauguration Day. Blood at the border. An immigrant on an H-1B visa on Trump's Inauguration Day. The Sun-Pluto conjunction at 1 degrees Aquarius. What could it portend for our nation's future?
But things were about to get stranger. Users on X,
the Everything app,
whispered that maybe, just maybe, they knew the deceased. No, not David Chris Mayland, who was mourned by nobody, but Felix Bauchalt, who sometimes goes by Ophelia, a quant trader from the Rationalist community. Or is it something darker, or an even more freakier community than the Rationalist one?
On Monday, January 27th, the U.S. prosecutor Matthew Lasher filed a document claiming, quote, the defendant possessed a journal at the time of her violent confrontation with law enforcement that, in addition to containing apparent ciphertext, contained phrases including, quote, coming up on acid, not really sure what to spend this trip on. This LSD trip seems pretty mellow, and I felt kind of high vibration-y, maybe more so than other LSD trips.
It goes on to say, her associations with other individuals suspected of violent acts also warrants caution. The individual who purchased the firearms the defendant and Bauchalt possessed on January 20th, 2025, is a person of interest in a dual homicide investigation in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Baucult flew into the United States in the hours preceding the Pennsylvania homicide. Both the defendant and the person who purchased the firearms in Vermont that the defendant and her companion possessed on January 20th, 2025, are acquainted with and have been in frequent contact with an individual who was detained by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania during that homicide investigation. That individual is also a person of interest in a homicide investigation in Vallejo, California. Also, this is really hard to, not meant to be read out loud because that's a really long sentence. I had to breathe a couple of times during it.
All of this, the drugs, the shootings, the associations with these specific homicides, are wrapped up with something or someone called Ziz.
Is it an offshoot? Antagonist? Cults? Somehow associated with MIRI, the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, led by the GOAT, Eliezer Yudkowsky, out in Berkeley, California. Liz wrote the GOAT, but I editorially disagree with that. I think there's a new GOAT in town in the rationalist community named Brace. And more broadly, associated with a community called Less Wrong, an incubator for rationalist thought experiments, various AI, machine learning, and crypto projects, an overall center for the Bay Area techno-ideological scene. We're going to start today trying to figure out how a person who went from tweeting this,
lots of dead smushed worms on the sidewalk today because people step on them as the worms try to travel across the wet ground. If it's raining, look down while you walk to save the worm friends.
3 exclamation points. On December 5th, 2023, would, only a month and some days later that I can't figure out in my head quick enough because I'm doing too many rationalist equations in there, draw a fucking Glock 23 on a cop and start blasting. Liz, we gotta break the fucking fake ass true crime thing for a second.
Yeah, okay,
here.
so we're done with that now.
We have done a lot of episodes recently, I know, on tech people and, you know, Andreessen,
That's one of our beats.
It's one of our beats.
First of all, we are from California.
We're from California. These people came to the white man came to where we live and destroyed fucking everything. I'm not even kidding. San Francisco used to be paradise. And these people came and they annihilated everything that once made the Bay Area cool. And they wanted their little fucking tower. We hate them.
Yeah, I think, so we just wrote that funny little true crime thing because this is a true crime podcast. In some ways.
And a non-actionable comedy style podcast.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have heard in recent days or have been getting a little like, I've seen some people getting nutty online being like, oh my God, there's rationalist killers out there. There's a rationalist cult out there. And you were on this real fast when it dropped. And we've been kind of like digging into this. And this seems to be a really, really crazy story that we figured out that we actually have to take 2 episodes to tell. So I just want to kind of lay out why we're doing that. It's because like we kind of got into this stuff when we were talking about Luigi. Yeah. And we kind of got into a lot of this stuff when we talked about Sam Bankman-Fried like years ago. And in the past, we also have done episodes on effective accelerationism and Mark Andreessen and all of these guys. Musk, of course. Also, we did those episodes about Peter Thiel like so many years ago and Mensch Small Bug.
Yep.
And like saying all that, we haven't actually done a proper sort of like rationalist excavation. And it's hard to talk about what potentially might be going on with this killer cult without going back and doing a little bit of a sort of like social history here. Yeah,
the loose sort of like affinity project, whatever, fucking series of group chats. We don't fully know the organizational structure yet that these people belong to.
Of this cult that is implicated with these killings.
Yeah, which I guess, you know, people are calling the Zizians after the right of a person named Ziz.
Yeah.
But that itself stems as like an ideological direct offshoot, even though it turned against it, of MIRI, the Machine Intelligence Research Institute. but the thing is, like, that community that MIRI belongs to, the rationalist community, has given birth, rather painful, frankly, thalidomide-style births, to some of America's most notorious freaks. You mentioned Mencius Moldbug. And I think Curtis Yarvin's pen name, Mencius Moldbug, gives the game a little bit away, because I phrased that weirdly, but you know what I'm saying.
You did it in the rationalist way.
Gives the game a little bit away. But these people are, like, very... I'm trying to think of, like, a gentle way to say this. Like, these people are atypical in many ways, and the rationalist community, people like Mencius Moldbug, Curtis Yarvin, people like Blake Masters, who kind of was like, came out of this stuff, who we'll talk about a little bit in this episode. But like, a lot of these ideas that came from this community, and there's various versions. There's like, you know, there's sort of like more conservative ones. There's more libertarian ones. I wouldn't say there's more left-wing ones, although you might group the Zizians in with that. Although
I don't think.
I mean, people have really broad definitions of what is left-wing, I think, today. And the reality is that that's actually why it's crucial to have, like, pretty particular language about what you believe, which we don't believe in any... Well, no, we do believe in liberalism. We are the #1 liberal podcast. But, like, it has, like, these different, like, ideological vectors, but it's hugely influential. I mean, like, a lot of, like, Elon Musk's long-termist sort of thinking, the Mars colonization stuff... you know, sometimes you hear Elon, when he's talking about AI, talk about, like, we might create these killer robots. That kind of comes from this grouping of people, like, largely, loosely grouped as the rationalists. Yeah,
and, you know, even not even talking about, like, the big thought leaders that most of whom we will talk about today, but, like, just people who came into contact with less wrong, which we will explain. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about, and congratulations. You know, came into contact or, like, were members or, you know, commenters on Less Wrong or on Slate Star Codex, which is an offshoot of Less Wrong, or, you know, all this kind of larger community, you know, the like kind of blanket approach to how they view the world has informed so much of how people are approaching big questions today, like far up the food chain, right? It's funny. You and I were talking about this, and we were saying, like, going back through all of this, it feels like an alternate historical path of a story of how we got to where we are right now today, Trump in the White House and the people that are staffing up all the agencies, and are how they view the world, how they want to shape the world. And we can all kind of trace it back to a lot of stuff that was happening here online and in Berkeley, California, that ended up really, like, kind of doing a lot of the ideological training of everyone in Silicon Valley, right? And it's funny because I think a lot of it is really eerie going back through this stuff. And you can see how it has created a framework that it's fundamentally opposed to kind of like the way that I just approach the world, the way I see the world. Yeah. And it's really difficult for me.
Like, reading through a lot of this stuff, because again, we've visited and revisited Less Wrong and, like, the writings associated with this community from, like, a pretty early part of this podcast.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people that we've talked about have at least, like, some tangential or direct sometimes involvement in this kind of stuff, or very influenced by the language here. This is kind of my problem with, like, a lot of tech stuff in general. And you and I were talking about this morning. Like, these people do, whether they know it or not, like, they are on a mission to kind of destroy everything that you love and hold dear, and that, like, that has made humanity human. And, like, it's funny because MIRI is, like, a sensible purpose. I'm sure they would tell you a million things. From what I understand, as a normal human being who I think that sort of a median person, like, they're researching AI safety and making sure that we don't create, you know, something crazy that's going to kill everybody or torture us all for infinity, which seems like a pretty okay thing to do. But, like, they're so, like, wrapped up in their own fucking bullshit And like the thought processes that go behind like that, like they show their fucking work here that like go behind like all of the decisions that they make are like so antithetical to like what I think of as like the soul of humanity that like it is almost like the AI has already taken over these fucking people. And like it's like, you know how when you see like Lex Fridman talk or whatever, and like he's actually almost like more emotive than a lot of these people. They can be emotive, but like it's like there's a sort of what do they call it? The uncanny valley, like where you're like, am I watching a person, or like is this some sort of like advanced? Like if it came out that Lex Fridman had been a fucking like hoax done by some technology company, and that like he didn't exist, and it's been like a fucking hologram or like a cartoon for the past whatever many years he's been doing it, I would not be surprised. And like these people. And this is, I think, the case for a lot of people in Silicon Valley, almost think of themselves as thinking machines, kind of in that like new atheist way where they're talking about like, it's in that, I guess metaphorical, but like, we're just sacks of flesh with computer chips as brains.
Right.
They are sacks of flesh with computer chips as brains.
That's why they want to optimize. That's why everything is about efficiency. That's why everything is about hacking and, removing all of those messy things that actually are what make us human. And that's like kind of, what undergirds a lot of this thinking. And when taken to the extreme, which is, where you see it and everything, like we've said, from Sam Bankman-Fried to this killer cult, which we will get to, this ideology, it's really, really fucking dangerous. And it also sadly feels to me like poetically the only thing that America might be capable of creating.
There's a viral clip that was going around that I think is actually from a couple of years ago of Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, talking about how, the new technologies are going to cause us to sort of renegotiate the social contract. And the reality is like, and I mean, this has sort of been the kind of the great joke of a lot of social media companies since they started, is that like a lot of the people who are in charge of like these ways that we interact socially and who have like great influence and power in a lot of the like new sort of theaters or whatever for social dynamics to take place. I'm talking about social media here, but like a lot of the internet in general are like fundamentally antisocial people, and like who on like a basic level. I mean, I made a joke about this earlier in the beginning, like things that like a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old would take for granted in their interactions with other people. They like don't fully understand. I mean, this is what makes Mark Zuckerberg, I think, so unnerving to people, is because you can tell like this is a person who like is not maybe capable of interacting with me on like the level that I would sort of expect from like meeting just a normal guy. You know what I mean? And like, I mean, all that is to say, like the world contains, endless amounts, different kinds of people. I'm not saying that like, because you're socially weird or you're like think different, like that's fucked up. But I think that like it is a fundamental danger that like much of this like almost this technological policy, which translates into social policy and every other kind of policy you can think of, is led by people who sort of like stem from this worldview, which like is heavy on utilitarianism and like reduces everything to like equations. And I think part of what bugs me so much about this is they call themselves rationalists, and they say that they're and the way that they talk, the way that they fucking bloviate is in this way that's so self-important, and they think they're all so fucking smart. And I just want to tell you, from a normal fucking guy, you're not so smart. I actually think you're fucking stupid, and I think you're fucking weird. If being rational got you to where like Eliezer Yudkowsky is on any given day at whatever sweaty fucking like massive people orgy that he finds himself in some fucking dank Berkeley fucking basement, then rationalism is a supremely irrational and in fact insane thing to base your life around. So Liz, what is rationalism? Because I actually don't really know what it is. I just know what rationalists are, and I infer the rest from that.
Okay, so I actually think it's funny. I found this really good summation on a Y Combinator forum post that I think is a good way to kind of start us off, because it's going to take us a little while to break all of this down and some of this history. But so this, I'm going to read from it because I think it's pretty good.
What's the username?
Prawn.
Interesting. Spelled P-R-O-N?
What is that? Is that
Here,
something?
0N?
No, it's not 0, but that was probably taken.
What does that mean?
Doesn't mean anything.
It means porn.
Really?
Yeah.
Why don't they just...
I don't know.
It
Because
was-
these people, Liz, the technologist mind is unknowable to us.
Yeah. Wow. It's so clever the way you just switch letters. Wow. It's so clever.
It's leet speak.
Okay. This is what Prawn said. For those who may find this a little foreign, from what I could gather, rationality, in quotations, refers to a post-New Age, new techno-religion originating in Northern California, whose soteriology focuses on artificial intelligence as the source of redemption or damnation, whose eschatology comprises an event called singularity, which is the accelerated formation of an artificial intelligence entity or entities, and whose normative doctrine focuses on Bayes' formula as a guiding principle and a particularly technical form of utilitarianism as an organizing moral principle. Rationality has several institutions, two of which are named MIRI and CFAR, dedicated to studying the eschatological and normative aspects of the creed, respectively. The website Less Wrong is a primary publication of Rationality, and its founding canonical texts include a Harry Potter fanfiction novella. It is one of many religions that grew in Northern California over the past 60 years or so, and far from the strangest one. Now, I think I might disagree with that last statement about it being the strangest one, though I understand that's up for debate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it is the strangest one. I think but it's, I would say, probably one of the more influential ones.
I would say it's probably the most influential one. At least, I
Absolutely.
mean, but the thing that I love is this person, Prawn's framing of this as a religion, which is, and specifically as a Northern California sort of religious cult. Because that's certainly not how it's framed at all anywhere else, right? This is seen as a sort of like, just a kind of like intellectual milieu of the internet that has been quite influential and receives pretty much glowing praise up until, let's say, the collapse of FTX from the media, whether it was like in the New York Times talking about CFAR or just sort of as like weird utopian thinking out in the valley. But it's certainly not usually framed as this.
Yeah, I mean, that the funny thing is, like, you really got to understand, like, this stuff is influential in ways that, like, are sometimes a little masked and sometimes not at all. Like, I mean, for instance, this post you read was from the Y Combinator forum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Y Combinator is led by Gary Tan, a malignant dwarf who haunts the back alleys of San Francisco, and he was the perfect height to suck my dick without bending over. But not that I would take it because the teeth are disgusting. No disrespect to our British listeners. Like Gary Tan, for instance, embraced a little pathetically, which goes along with basically everything he does, the doctrine of EAC, effective accelerationism, which was, at least in terms of naming, I guess an attempt to marry some of the rationalist stuff with like Nick Land's, like a sort of dumbed down version of Nick Land's already pretty dumb thesis already. And like, that's the thing. I want to pause here. I read a lot of this stuff. And like through the years, I have read a lot of this stuff. And like, frankly, I'm sick of science fiction. And I feel like you might have said this on the show before. I grew up loving science fiction. I read every Robert Heinlein book, including most of the incest ones, which we don't have to include all those in the canon because he was getting too weird in the incest very late in his career. He's Nazi, basically, is Robert Heinlein. But like, I read every Philip K. Dick book. I read all these like not golden age, I guess that's whatever age of science fiction books. And I was like really into them. One of my favorite books is a science fiction book. These people read too much science fiction, and I think we actually need like a 10-year pause on all sales of science fiction books until we can work some things out here. Because like, it's like, you know, Nick Land's whole thing. And by the way, just listen, he's a guy who, I've said it before, Belden's Law. If you do enough speed, you either become a Nazi or gay, or if you do enough, you become a gay Nazi. He did MSP to become a Nazi and moved to China. This stuff is just like a mishmash and sort of like pop version of the EX stuff of these sort of very arcane, almost like semi-religious writings that it draws from.
Yeah. I would say that, like, you know, it's funny going back through. It's like, oh my God, we did that whole episode on Nick Land and effective accelerationism when fucking Andreessen wrote that stupid blog post way back when. And, you know, like we said at the beginning of the show, we've all kind of like touched on these other things, but this big like rationalism or the like rational sphere sort of covers, it's like a big umbrella term for that, for like that stuff and more. I mean, I think there's rationalists, there's social Darwinists, there's libertarians, there's ethno-nationalists, there's race realists, there's fucking pickup artists, there's reactionaries, there's fucking traditionalists, there's AI futurists, and they all kind of ended up meeting under this big worldview, right? Which basically is the belief that nothing, like no fear of political correctness or uncontrollable or unwanted emotion should get in the way of a human's ability to see the world as it is. And I'm just going to like put that out there because I'm not sure. I think a lot of this stuff is contestable on its own terms, but we don't need to do that here. But they, you know, for them, it's like nothing's off limits. And so that meant in this sphere having a lot of conversations about taboo topics, right? Like, how do we think through and debate rational explanations for social norms, like the prohibition on incest? And there would be these like lengthy debates on that, right? And so I think because of their very open and like insistence on having a debate about anything and everything, it became a big tent, like a big tent community by necessity, because they were basically like, well, if you can talk about anything, you can talk about anything with anyone. And so a lot of like fascists and neo-reactionaries were like under the umbrella, right? Or a lot of like race realists. A lot of the now human biodiversity stuff comes out of this as well.
Razib Khan, or whatever that fucking, another stupendously odd-looking human being. I mean, by God! No wonder he got into genetics or whatever. But like, you know, I think he like lost a potential job at New York Times opinion section because of essentially his involvement with this scene.
Yeah.
And like, you know, his race and IQ thing. And that's you see like Elon's Twitter. I hate to bring it up, but like
his X
Everything app, like oftentimes interacts with these like sort of like very rationalist, accounts that or like rationalist style accounts, but particularly the race ones. Yeah. But like all these accounts are like obsessed with like race and IQ and like race and crime rates and race and whatever. And it becomes like almost like a gussied up sort of scientific way to talk about it. I mean, you see like, remember that couple? We did an episode on them. The couple that was like raising those like super kids. Like those are people like this. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of like even Brian Johnson is essentially like a person like this. There's a lot of these people.
Well, I think it's like important for us to kind of name check all of this stuff that's happening right now, because like this is an extremely influential movement, and a lot of the stuff that people dislike or a lot of the stuff that we see either on X, like you're saying, or on with like Brian Johnson or all of these sort of like even a lot of people in the fucking Trump admin are coming out of this big tree.
Yeah, I mean, let's call a spade here, right? Like Mark Andreessen, the abnormal looking gentleman from the Valley, Mr. Egg. He like has adopted a lot of. He has tried to sort of like do a merger of a lot of this kind of stuff with a more like. He has tried to, I guess, give emotion to some of it with like a lot of his writing, right? Like the Techno-Optimist Manifesto, his that puerile bullshit. Like a lot of those ideas are like essentially kind of cribbed from this, but like it's funny, even like those who are like accelerationists, which I wouldn't call like Yudkowsky or like the core people like at MIRI or anything like that.
No, also the opposite.
Definitely not. Yeah, the opposite. But it all comes from like the same, I guess, like intellectual milieu, and like literally the same, like these people like rubbing shoulders with each other. I mean, I was looking at Blake Masters' Tumblr, and pause. First of all, that's crazy. Blake Masters is.
Who is the nominee for, the rumored?
He was the rumored nominee for ATF head. But like I was looking at, he's taking notes on, he's fucked Peter Thiel. I would bet genuine hard money, rationalist style, that Blake Masters has fucked Peter Thiel. Or has either had sex, has had some kind of sexual, he sucked his dick at least once. But
we are a comedy podcast.
We're just a fucking comedy podcast. I'm saying that in a metaphorical way. Everything I say here is just metaphorical. By the way, we're actually a metaphorical podcast. But it's like a poetry kind of thing. But he takes these class notes, and I'm like looking at the guests in these classes, and like, yeah, so many of them are basically from this community, right? Like Thiel was bringing them into like Stanford to talk to these, adult men with Tumblrs, and like, discuss ideas with them and all this kind of shit. And it produces people like Masters, who, by the way, is a Manchurian candidate. That is straight up Masters. His reinvention of himself, him trying to fucking reverse engineer JD Vance, you know what I mean, and be like, I'm a salt of the earth kind of guy. You're a perennial fucking loser, Blake. You are nothing but Peter Thiel's bagman. You will be nothing but Peter Thiel's bagman. Know your fucking place, dog. You are at his fucking beck and call. You are the guy who carries the briefcase and stands 3 feet behind the boss. You are not going to be in fucking Congress, or maybe he will.
So, okay, this is Scott Alexander, who, again, is part of this tree. He started the blog Slate Star Codex, we mentioned. I'm just saying this stuff as if nobody knows, which I think is a good policy. So this is him in 2016. This is what he said. The rationalist community is a group of people, of which I am a part, who met reading the site Less Wrong, and who tend to hang out together online, sometimes hang out together in real life, and tend to befriend each other, work with each other, date each other, and generally move in the same social circles.
True.
Some people call it a cult, but that's more of a sign of some people having lost vocabulary for anything between, quote, totally atomized individuals and, quote, outright cult than any particular cultishness. It can't be just about being rational, and it can't just be about being transhumanism, and it can't just be about Bayesianism. So what exactly is it? The question has always bothered me, but now after thinking about it, I finally have a clear answer. Rationalism is the belief that Eliezer Yudkowsky is the rightful caliph. No, sorry. I guess that's him doing joke. I think rationalist community is a tribe, much like Sunni or Shia, that started off with some pre-existing differences, found a rallying flag, and then developed a culture. So that culture...
Hold on. Is he saying that Sunni and Shia started off with pre-existing differences and then came together under Islam?
I don't think he really knows what he's fucking talking about. But the culture that he's talking about, I want to say, which is like to say the rationalist culture, its obsessions, its languages, its mode of thinking, its view of the world, all of its little shibboleths and so on, is completely and totally intertwined, enmeshed, inextricable from Silicon Valley culture as a whole, right? So think of the ideology this way. We're going to break it down. There are intelligent creators, whether they are people who write computer programs or people who fund the people who write computer programs or potentially the computer programs themselves, who can get us out of the messiness of being human, right? And the way to do that is through becoming a rationalist, through a new rationalist mode of thinking and approaching the world. And so we mentioned this, but this trickles down to everyone in Silicon Valley who was meeting both online and in real life at all of these sort of like different rationalist meetups.
I'm sorry. Let's call a spade here. Fucking cuddle puddles. And I'm not kidding. One of the people. I mean, listen. There's a reason.
It's not just that though. I'm saying it's like infected the whole culture.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, yes. But like, there is a reason that one of the people involved in the officer involved probable friendly fire shooting that happened with Border Patrol. One of their last tweets was about the ethics of cuddle puddles. I think it was them. It was one of the people that is involved in the murders here. Like that, those are like a major facet of this is group sex, frankly. But they have like all of these like seminars, and they have like retreats and
different
really,
startups and different projects, and also different workshops, both in institutions and outside of them. And this is all happening in the Bay Area, I would say post 2008 and on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a term that we've referenced, I think, before on the podcast called TESCREAL. Stands for transhumanism, extropianism, singularitarianism, modern cosmism, I'm just reading off the Wikipedia here, rationalism, effective altruism, and long-termism. And I think that sums up like a lot of the different kind of bubbles that these people are in, that all are blown from the same little bubble maker.
Yes. So as much as this was trickling down to everyone that was sort of just populating all of these different companies, these different startups, and shaping a lot of the technology that we use today, and other places as well, it also trickled up, like you said. Like Elon and Grimes linked up over their shared love of Yudkowsky's Roko's basilisk. Like that's important to remember.
And if you really want to get bummed out, search Roko basilisk on Grimes' Twitter, and you see there's a thing that some losers.
Says Rokoko.
Yeah,
I think it's a joke.
It's a joke. It is a joke. It is a joke. It is a joke. She named a character.
I think she has a song lyric.
No, it is a character. I looked it up after you told me that as a character in a 2015 music video. How long has Grimes been around?
So long.
I feel like that's when she came out.
Very long.
But I've missed the whole thing. I just remember the first song, and then I never heard it again. And then she had a baby with Elon Musk. Not my thing.
Rokoko's an Arcade Fire song too.
Peter Thiel gave over $1 million to the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, right? SBF was feted in the press as philanthropic hero for championing effective altruism right before he was convicted in one of the largest fraud cases in American history. Like all of this stuff is going all the way to the top. Several of the top AI firms have very strong connections to this scene.
As does the modern iteration of like all these event market things. I mean, we talked about like, in our episode on election gambling, like a lot of like the events markets, prediction markets, like these
Footerkey.
The what? Yeah, Footerkey. Like that comes from this too. No, it's like
it does. Of
like
course.
it all comes from this shit.
We're literally going to talk about it. So let's talk about this tree specifically, right? Let's start less wrong. Let's start with this. Mm-hmm. Okay. Less Wrong is an online forum, a community. Itself, it was an offshoot of an early blog project called Overcoming Bias, right? Overcoming Bias, that started back in 2006. The principal contributors were the Fudarchy guy, a.k.a. Robin Hanson, the political betting market economist, which is Luigi Mangione's favorite, remember?
Yeah.
And Eliezer Yudkowsky, the AI researcher.
I talked a lot of shit on Yudkowsky, and I probably will continue to because he has rebuffed me. But the reality
rebuffed.
The reality is Yudkowsky is I find him interesting. I mean, he dropped out of I don't think he went to fucking high school. He's like never written like a peer-reviewed paper. He's like not a scientist. He's just very, let's say, I'm using a euphemism here, focused.
Yudkowsky's posts on overcoming bias were the inspiration for the offshoot, meaning Less Wrong. A lot of Less Wrong's topics were based around early rationalist bugbears, I'll say, which is
favorite word.
Cognitive science, game theory, Bayesian statistics, logic, evo psych, and artificial intelligence. I'd say almost everyone on there, they love to do the two things that I hate, which is debate endlessly about hypotheticals. I hate hypothetical thinking.
So
I hate this. I do not understand it.
One of the ways that you might have kind of come into contact with this stuff, if you haven't been searching it out, is through the Twitter account belonging to one of the most beautiful women in the world, which is actually difficult because I view all women as equally beautiful, but that equality has bumps in it. And this is a particularly, let's say, generous hillock. Ayala. However you say her fucking name. I want to say it like Paella.
Paella? Is it Ayaya or yeah? I think it's
Ella.
It's Ella.
I have no idea. I read it as Ella.
I read it
try
as
not to.
Ayala.
Yeah.
Ayala.
Old Yella.
We'll square the circle. It's Ayala.
I she is sort of famous for being a sex-focused rationalist who, by the way, after this story broke, had to come out and say that she didn't know anybody involved in this, although...
She disavowed.
She disavowed, which is smart to do.
Yeah, you got to disavow.
But this is actually one of her tamer questions. She often does polls on Twitter and on her Substack, famous for having the Ayala group sex, gangbang, birthday gangbang. I'm sorry to talk like this. I can't make eye contact with Alyssa. I'm talking about this.
And for not showering, famously.
Well, that's what I'm about to get to. Okay. But the gangbang, which she famously had several people, quote, coming in, nutting in the fluffer. I'm actually not quoting there. That's from memory. Frankly, it's something that disgusts me. But this is a typical sort of mind question. And keep in mind, this person is like in this group. Like half of Yudkowsky's replies are to her alt.
Really?
Yeah. I'm standing 50 feet downwind from you, hornily. However, I haven't showered in 14 days. My friend runs up to you and assures you that I don't stink, but it's unclear if they're trustworthy. You can't come closer without committing to having sex with me. Assume you can't back out. You, A, have sex with me. B, do not have sex.
Oh my God, this is a two-box problem. She's
what?
literally rephrasing the two-box problem as having sex.
She's doing the two-box problem. I'm going to say, wait, I don't understand. The choice is just to not have sex with Ayala, or this presupposes that I just want to have sex with Ayala. However, she mentioned showering in that, and she's famous for sort of another way that she deals with showering is that she does not shower, famously. She showers something less than 50 times a year, and she famously records all of her actions, such as crying, which seems to be almost a daily occurrence, and having sex, which happens significantly more than the amount of times that she showers. And so, like, we're dealing with these people who are, like, a lot of her like hypotheticals involve like child sex, and frankly, that runs through this community like fucking wildfire. A lot of these people do that.
Well, that was like my point about how it's like, oh, we should find, like forget what society says. What we need to do is come to our own conclusions about what should be right. So how do we make a rational, like, what is the rational case for not having sex with children? And like that is the typical Ella tweet, but it's also a typical post on fucking Less Wrong.
Well, so like they'll just like do like a trolley problem, like would you kill one person to save two people or blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. But instead they'll always frame it as like, would you have sex with one child that's like save two children from being molested? And you're just like, what?
Like, what are you fucking talking?
What?
This is always so I love that your response to this is like, I don't understand.
Why are you asking me that?
My response is always like, I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
That's why I say to people, with all of their hypothetical questions, you want to talk about Roko? I'm like, I wouldn't worry about that.
My whole thing, even with the try problem, I'll cross that bridge when I fucking come to it, player. Like, it's not my fucking, I don't know.
Mind your business.
I'll do whatever I fucking feel like. How about that? Oh, you don't know what feeling is like.
So, to get back into this, Brace, will you read from this? This is a 2009 canonical post from Yudkowsky called, What Do We Mean by Rationality?
I mean, two things. Epistemic rationality, systematically improving the accuracy of your beliefs. And number two, instrumental rationality, systematically achieving your values.
I don't get it.
Well, no, keep going. He explains.
Oh.
The first concept is simple enough. When you open your eyes and look at the room around you, you'll locate your laptop in relation to the table, and you'll locate a bookcase in relation to the wall. If something goes wrong with your eyes or your brain, then your mental model might say there's a bookcase where no bookcase exists, and when you go over to the bookcase, you'll be disappointed.
Oh, no.
This is what it's like to have a false belief, a map of the world that doesn't correspond to the territory. Epistemic rationality is about building accurate maps instead. The correspondence between belief and reality is commonly called truth, and I'm happy to call it that. Instrumental rationality, on the other hand, is about steering reality, sending the future where you want it to go. It's the art of choosing actions that lead to outcomes ranked higher in your preferences. I sometimes call it winning. So rationality is about forming true beliefs and making decisions that help you win, which is an interesting thing to say because you appear to be a loser.
Le who? The her.
This is like, I'm sorry, this is actually part of a much, much, much longer post.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't believe this, but these guys are kind of blowhards. Apparently, it's not rational to have editors.
What is your rule about putting on jewelry, Liz?
What do you mean?
Or accessories? What's your rule about putting on accessories?
Oh, it's not my rule, but this is the classic rule.
It's Liz's law. Liz's law of accessories.
No, but you just you look in the mirror and it's take one thing off right before you leave.
Yeah.
One thing off. You always got too much going on. You probably don't think you do, but that's wrong. You do.
I learned this when I was first getting into punk. I would, you'd see a lot of people wear a lot of different band pins on them. Mm-hmm. But actually that looks like shit. And you should, if you're doing one, you should only ever wear one pin on you at any time.
Really?
And yeah, definitely. You wear like a little fucking button on the that part of your leather jacket right there. Anything else is too much. Anything else is too much. And actually, I should take back these guys being losers because I do judge these people as being the comic book guy from The Simpsons. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, they actually, I guess they own Tesla and Doggy.
He says, this is from another post, I often use the metaphor that rationality is the martial art of the mind. You don't need huge bulging muscles to learn martial arts. Similarly, if you have a brain with cortical and subcortical areas in the appropriate places, you might be able to learn to use it properly. If you're a fast learner, you might learn faster. But the art of rationality isn't about that. It's about training brain machinery we all have in common. And where there are systematic errors human brains tend to make, like an insensitivity to scope, rationality is about fixing those mistakes or finding workarounds. So in less wrong parlance, these posts were part of a sequence, which is just like a collection of posts on topics, but they call it a sequence. They eventually put all of these together into a big book called Rationality from AI to Zombies. It is... and this is true, it is 6 volumes, it is 22 chapters, but Yudkowsky has written way, way, way more sequences than this. There's ones on ethical injunctions, which tell you why, you should still follow some prohibitions, even though, you have thought some clever logical reason that gets you around them.
I think that's a good rule for these people to have.
Yeah. There's the fun theory sequence, which is... I wonder if we're ever going to run out of fun in the universe, and if so, how and when and what do we do? There is a meta-ethics sequence, the free will sequence. There is the 742-page Robin Hanson and Yudkowsky AI FOOM debate, which is a blog conversation between the two of them about whether or not AI was going to kill us. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later.
My advice here is these. I genuinely think, and again, I feel weird being. I don't like Yudkowsky and I don't like these people, but I actually feel like I'm being cruel by making fun of him.
Yeah, I know.
And so I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna apologize right now, Eliezer Yudkowsky. If you had been born 50 years prior to when you were, you would have been a middling to decent, inventive science fiction writer. I think that would have been a good place for you to be. I think that would have made you happy. And I think that would have made the world, I don't know, better, but it would have made the world fine. The world would have still been fine with your absence.
Well, he also wrote Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, which we read from at the beginning of this episode, and is a work of Harry Potter fan fiction that is 122 chapters and over 660,000 words. I don't really want to know what is in there. I'm going to be honest.
We learned a little bit. Gringots.
Well, that's from the original, but apparently Harry in this wants to discover the laws of magic and become a god. That's part of it. And surprise, it's not magic, but rationality that gives Harry godlike powers. Would you look at that? Which lets him shape the world in his image. And this is a quote, where the descendants of humanity have spread from star to star and won't tell the children about the history of ancient Earth until they're old enough to bear it. And when they'll learn, they'll weep to hear that such a thing as death had ever once existed.
See, like that would be good in like an original short story that you wrote in some science fiction magazine in 1974.
28.
Like
1928.
No.
In 74 would
in
have been too
74
much already.
because he could have done the whole like new wave of science fiction thing under like Harlan Ellison. Like
If you did invent a time machine and you went back and you did Harry Potter, but as science fiction in the 1970s, that you're right, that would be crazy. People go nuts for that.
people go crazy.
It would blow up the whole genre.
Yeah.
I did look up reviews of it on Harry Potter fanfic forums, and this was a review. A largely forgettable, overly long nerd power fantasy with a bit of science, parentheses, most of it wrong, and a lot of bad ideas, 1.5 stars.
Okay.
That's
well,
harsh.
Harry Potter, you got that from a Harry Potter fanfic forum, Liz.
I did.
I'm going to tell you there, though, that's an unreliable fucking, that is an
That's
ethically, your meta ethics are all kinds
should
of
be at
out of
least
gringotts.
one audience of that.
Harry would not approve. Harry would kill you. You'd be the last human to die because those people want Harry to fuck. Those people want to see Harry Potter's fucking penis. And I'm sorry. This is another thing. We're talking about bugbears. Fan fiction also needs to be banned because I think people discover strange things about themselves. I think fan fiction exists in the minds of young, impressionable people as like almost like an eldritch horror that like comes in and spreads these like crazy
It's
ideas.
a Roko.
It's a Roko.
Infohazard. It's a fucking Infohazard.
It is a motherfucking Infohazard. Okay. Fantastic transition there, Liz. One of sort of the most famous, I'm going to say the most famous post from Less Wrong, and its greatest contributions to society is something called Roko's Basilisk, posted by user Roko in 2010, who later, I believe in a Reddit thread that I read, says Less Wrong, because Less Wrong also has a Reddit, which is,
of course.
Yeah, well, I don't, they all also post there. He's like, I regret even thinking of this, let alone writing it. It was banned for many years on Less Wrong because it is what is called an Infohazard.
Phrase. What is an
lady.
Infohazard?
I thought you'd never ask. An Infohazard was coined by Nick Bostrom in 2011. An information hazard, or Infohazard for short, is some true information that could harm people or other sentient beings if known. It is tricky to determine policies on information hazards. Some information might genuinely be dangerous, but excessive controls on information has its own perils. That is, I didn't attribute it because I forgot, but it is that's a definition from the Less Wrong website. I'm just going to say it right now. It's a trigger warning for even more autistic people. So Roko's Basilisk comes from a post on Less Wrong in 2010 called The Quantum Billionaire's Trick, which, amidst a incredible glazing of Elon Musk, and I'm using Zoomer speak there because there's nothing else I can describe it. And I've already used too many sex metaphors, and we're only like a little bit into this, posits what became the thought experiment Roko's Basilisk, which is summed up like this. And I'm summing this up from my own... I'm not even going to look at my notes here.
I think you can do it.
So
Warning, Infohazard, warning.
So a basilisk in like myth, Liz, is an ancient fucked up lizard that looks at you and kills you with its piercing gaze.
Isn't it kind of snake-like too?
The Wikipedia for basilisk has a woodblock print of a basilisk, and to me it looks like Watto. Like
Let me
his
see
face. It looks like fucking, look at his face.
Oh, the face absolutely does.
Watto coded.
It is sort of more lizard-like than snake.
A legendary reptile.
I don't fuck with lizards of any variety. I don't like cold-blooded creatures. Well, except I wouldn't call you. I can't call you that. You told me I
true.
couldn't call you that.
And you
Don't point at
literally
yourself.
can't. You can't. It was a
Okay.
test. You passed.
It was game theory. So a basilisk is a fucked up lizard that can look at you and make your mind go crazy or kill you with it. It kills you with its mind. Roko's Basilisk. Imagine in the future that we build an all-knowing, all-powerful, infinite God-like being that is AI, right? Like we build God, essentially, which in the MIRI's sense, the Less Wrong sense, is like we build an AI that is functionally God.
Mm-hmm.
It will know everything. It will know what size shoes you are. It will know everything about you, even though you're long perished since it
it's because it's far in the future. It will be able to resurrect your consciousness and torture you for eternity, which is literally just a ripoff of the Harlan Ellison famous short story, I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream, because you did not help bring it into existence. And if you read Rocco's Basilisk, that thought occurs to you, and now you're guilty. That's why it's an info hazard. So, like, prior to reading Rocco's Basilisk, this thought may have never occurred to you. But now that you have read it, God is going to know that you know this and use this future blackmail to get you to either torture you, or now you actually have to work towards bringing it about.
Okay, let me one-up you on this. How do we know that the future AI, all-knowing, all-powerful creation and creator, it has not seeded this as a test for humanity that we all must pass or not?
Interesting you say that, Liz. Interesting you say that. Because we actually could right now be living in a simulation that basilisk is running in the future as a test for our real selves. But every time that this is, unfortunately, we get into a multiverse here. Every time the Rocco's Basilisk AI super god in the future.
Which it does seem like we do live in a multiverse.
Oh, so true. Imagine a world where every grain of sand was the same except for one. That thought blew my mind when I was 7 years old. And then, you know what? I stopped thinking about it. But imagine in
That's
the future.
That's how I feel about microplastics.
It's running, I know, because I'm like, my balls are, who knows what's in there already? You're telling me that no plastic's not going to hurt. In the future, God, we might be long dead right now, Liz. Like this second, we might be long dead. But the AI in the future is running a test on you individually right now. So you're actually the only, quote, real person, but you're not a real person. You're part of the simulation, but the simulation is just to you. In the future right now, seeing if this would work, it's like we might be a test right now. You might be like a test of code right now. We all might be a test of code right now. And guess what? I don't know. I don't think we are. I'm just going to say this right now. I don't think that's true. I don't think that an AI in the future is going to torture us for infinity. And guess what? This is what I was thinking. This info hazard is so scary because it's a fucking, you know what it is? It is a fucking chain email. It is a fucking chain email. That is what an info hazard is. It is a fucking chain email. Oh, you read this. Now you have to send it to 10 people or you die.
It's
or
the
whatever.
Ring.
These people are fucking writing fucking creepypasta, whatever, chain emails, scaring themselves. Oh no, the Rocco's Basilisk is in the future. Guess what? Let me ask you this, Rocco. What if God is real? Like the real, like God of the Hebrews, of the first and only, I haven't seen him cancel it, only original and still valid covenant. Just saying, it's the only one, it's the first
You
covenant.
really are getting into the Bible, aren't you?
I'm just saying, I don't understand. If God is so, listen, let me ask you this, little Belden's wager here. If God is so, if he's so fucking cool and goated, why do you have to make a second covenant? Isn't that weird? Why wouldn't you just do a first really good covenant?
Well, so you don't have to sacrifice like goats and sheep anymore.
But didn't he see that coming? Like,
yeah.
No, it was just, we're just developing
he's
beyond.
full now? Like, I don't understand it. Like, he's like, oh, no more sacrifice. I'm sorry. Like, first of all, yeah. But what if God is real and the future is going to be a fucking showdown between the real God and the AI God that we create? And of course, real God is going to win because he's been in the universe way longer and he made it, you know, and so he knows all like the tricks.
You should
and,
option that because that sounds like a movie that these people would watch.
God versus God. But what if we're fucking up right now and we're in that God's basilisk because we don't believe in him? Well, I'm speaking for myself. I don't, unfortunately, believe in God. But like, what if I'm fucking up that and I get sent to God's basilisk, otherwise known as hell? But the Jews don't have that. So we don't really know.
You're kind of confusing me. This is what I would say about it, which is, don't worry about it. I think I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it.
My whole thing is this. Brace's basilisk is going to destroy Rocco's basilisk in the future because if God is real, Pascal's wager, if God is real, he's way more powerful than machine God because he can do magic, Liz. He can do magic.
I don't think we call it magic when we're talking about God.
He can do miracles. He can do fucking magic, dude. If we sacrifice him, he gets enough mana and he does magic.
I love how you're talking about this as if it's like a celebrity death match between the two gods.
Well, it won't be a death match because we'll kill the god of Yudkowsky. Well, he doesn't want the god. So
They do talk about this in the Bible.
So this is the thing. Rocco's basilisk, like we're talking goofy whatever right now. Although
This
Brace's
blew
basilisk,
people's fucking backs out.
this was like, what? People were like, oh my god. This is the scariest post anyone has ever written on the internet. Oh my freaking god. Oh my freaking god. I read this and now what do I do?
Well, everyone was infected.
Yes, everyone got infected by Rocco's basilisk.
Infohazard.
I am infected.
Okay, we are making fun of this appropriately, but also, like, this literally did. People fucking lost their shit.
The problem with
Chomsky's nodding.
Well, Yudkowsky's reply to it is great. Listen to me very closely, you idiot. This post was stupid.
It got banned.
it got banned, he banned it, but now it's allowed.
They wouldn't ban the human biodiversity, but they were like, you've gone too far.
Well, I mean, even in the, and again, this is all just so we can talk eventually about this little cult-like group.
It's all important.
Even reading the Ziz's blog, which is written in a similar, I'm going to be honest with you, fucking unreadable style to this stuff. There are various basically like blocked out portions that you have to click into that are info hazards that are about Rocco's basilisk.
Rocco's basilisk is important to Ziz. And
Rocco's
we will
basilisk
explain
is
that
important to all
next
these
episode.
people. And so listeners, if you are a fucking normal, this might give you a little creepy chill in the same way that I don't know, seeing a scary ghost might or whatever,
Man,
a picture of a dead lady.
I wouldn't worry about it.
But you're going to be like, okay, whatever. There's a lot of people actually, so maybe info hazards are real. A lot of people who come into the rationalist space are unfortunately deeply irrational people and are unable to do things think about it for a second, be like, okay. And they're their brains can't handle it and it drives them crazy. And so what might sound stupid to you or me or whatever, or whoever, is very real to a lot of these people. And not everyone not all of these people are like, well, what if? And the reality is I am scared of super crazy death AI, but in 10 years when it does drones. I don't think that I'm worried about the God thing. Okay, we can worry about that later. I'm worried about the Palantir thing. But these people, these people think that they can make God, I guess, and are scared that they're going to do it in a crazy way, which is where a lot of the AI safety, blah, blah, blah kind of stuff comes from. So another pretty integral part of a lot of the logic games and problems that they play with each other, and that becomes seemingly, from what I can understand about it, which I'm going to admit, this one had me going a lot, is functional decision theory. I honestly can't explain it because some of it just seems kind of I don't know. So much of this stuff just seems I don't know. Isn't that just the way people think? Or it seems like trying to mathematize pretty basic actions. But it plays into what we're going to be talking about, especially in this second episode, because it leads you to, I think, a method of thinking that isn't necessarily tied to reality or ethics. I don't know. I can only kind of see the outcomes of this stuff rather than actually, I guess, the mechanistic workings.
So let's get back to Less Wrong, because it fostered, like we said, a really robust active community. One of the similar blog forums we mentioned, Scott Alexander's Slate Star Codex, that came later, 2013. All of this helped build out an ecosystem of really enthusiastic commenters, readers, contributors, all discussing, when you get to the bottom of this, is really just dressed up forms of self-improvement.
Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about with the functional decision theory stuff, is a lot of it is how do you make good decisions? And for me, I'm I don't know, I just make them. You know? I just fucking make them.
Well, one of the unifying features, too, is that everyone, whether coming from STEM, higher ed, professional tech world, autodidacts,
a good percentage of neurodivergent people,
everyone was really skeptical of the humanities as a discipline. And I just want to call this out. all of the ways in which human quote unquote emotional responses can cloud judgment, ethics, choice, interfere with rational decision making. You see this everywhere, and it's been building for decades and decades and decades, so much so that I think a lot of people think it is just sort of a common way to look at the world. But one of the biggest red flags in the world to me is someone who doesn't see value in the humanities, broadly speaking, which is art, literature, music, history, philosophy. Unfortunately, people who see that and think that of the world, that think that that is just kind of like useless human activity, that it has no utility, a word that these people like to use, which means that it has no value. They basically run everything now, including the humanities. So it's a pretty unfortunate situation that we're in. I'd say Less Wrong is really famous for their use of jargon, which makes it incomprehensible to me. But I do want to point that out because it is an important part of a lot of cults.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, I think to me, like MIRI and all these things like are cults. I mean, not every cult is fucking Jonestown.
Yeah.
But it is. And I think especially like these people also had to like invent this jargon in order to have like this common language. That's what makes me kind of feel bad for them because like I don't know. It's so pathetic. But like give me some of the examples here.
There's scope insensitivity, affective death spiral, counterfactual mugging, mind fallacy.
They call that the wise favorite. Sorry, sweetheart, you're doing a bit of a mind fallacy right there. I don't know if I like the mind fallacy. It's.
That sounds like a TV show with a magician.
Yeah, and like sometimes, so much of the writing like just verges on unreadable or is unreadable. And like sometimes, again, I've encountered this so many times with the show, and specifically, we're talking about with like when I was discovering NFT and crypto.
Yeah,
and I was always like, "Is there something more here? Is there something more here?" And sometimes there is something more here when I look into something, and I don't understand it on like an actual level. I'm not smart enough to understand it. I think in this way, like these people might be stupid in a way that it was not possible at any other point in human history, and like it is. The jargon that they use is like, it almost seems like it's a superiority complex kind of thing.
Well, it is like, I mean, this whole thing was for even having that sort of like insular communal logic and language and whatever, it was hugely influential beyond even its like immediate circle. And it had ideas and concepts that really like filtered outwards. And we've kind of talked around it, but effective altruism is a really like important example of this.
It's a node.
It is a node. I mean, but it's a now, I don't know, is it discredited?
I'm still doing it.
The philosophy of Sam Bankman-Fried, for example. And, it's important to remember Alameda's first office was in fucking North Berkeley, right? Like this was all happening here at the same time. Also, the 37-year-old New York Times bestselling, quote, philosopher. Other people have used that. I'm quoting them. Will MacAskill. I did not know he was 37 years old.
Let me look at this cat. Will MacAskill. Lord.
No, I'm not saying he doesn't look 37. I'm saying the way that people talk about him is like he should be like in his 50s or 60s because he's some philosopher. And I'm like, you can't talk about a 37-year-old like that.
Ooh, I'm looking at this, and it says Will MacAskill on effective altruism, Y Combinator, and artificial intelligence. Yeah. Ooh, armchair expert Will MacAskill. That's a hell of a gap you got in the teeth. No wonder your mouth is closed and all the other smiles. Normative uncertainty. Giving what we can. If this guy was my professor, I'm asking for a refund. Philosopher William MacAskill wants to help humanity last trillions of years. Goats and Soda, NPR. That might be different things they're talking about, but Goats and Soda would be a great name for a radio show.
So yeah, I mean, this is long-termism, effective altruism. We talked about this in relation to Sam Bankman-Fried. If you want to learn about it more for some reason, which you don't, you can check out those episodes. But I do want to just summarize real quick because, again, you'll see the influence of this rationalist like mode of thinking, which is the arc of the universe is long. Literally, there will be billions more people in the future than there are today. And the most important, aka the most effective thing to do today is thus to prioritize the well-being of the people of tomorrow. even if that's at the expense of the people of today. It is a extreme utilitarian point of view, or utilitarianism taken to its most extreme, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you see sort of elements of this because effective altruism kind of coincides with long-termism, which again, we talked about in one of the Sam Bankman-Fried episodes, which by the way, I texted him the other day and it's green text now. So he doesn't have that. He doesn't have the same phone number in jail if he has a phone in there, which he definitely does. But Musk is like into this stuff in like a typical sort of like Musk half-assed way. So like I think he kind of cribs a lot of, I mean, he knows a lot of these people, but he cribs a lot of ideas. And like the way he talks about us colonizing Mars is in this very existential way, which like coincides with kind of a lot of the way that these people think about not only like their mission, but about themselves. And I think like I have to say something about sort of the religious and quasi like sort of messianic character of a lot of people in here. So like something that one encounters like over and over and over and over in this stuff, and we're talking about everyone from like Ziz to Musk to Sam Bankman-Fried to Yudkowsky, is a lot of them seem to think that like the world is eventually doomed in some way. So there's like a millenarian element to it. And that
we are fallen.
We are fallen, right? Or we're going to be, whatever. Yeah, yes. But I have the power to fix it.
Or AI.
But like oftentimes.
Or AI. Ella.
Ella can fix it. But like, you know what I mean? So like my decisions have, even minute decisions have such weight in import because like that can ripple out. And so like, I'm not thinking like when I'm getting out at the apartment in the morning, like I'm not thinking of just going to get a cup of coffee. Like me getting a cup of coffee, is that optimized that I can do the most good?
Yes.
Which is, by the way, a very nebulous kind of unfilled in concept to a lot of these people. And so like Musk and all of these people are basically willing to sacrifice you and your either money or your life or your happiness or the fucking world you live in to sacrifice it, first covenant style, to the god of slop in order to give these benefits to these unknown teeming masses in the future. It's a fundamental, to me, it seems like a way to mask a fundamental hatred of humanity with a sort of like noble, it's this noblesse oblige.
Yeah, I mean, in Sam Bankman-Fried's case, this was how he rationalized doing as much fraud as possible in the immediate moment if he was theoretically somewhere, somehow, giving it away to all these altruistic causes, prioritizing all of this research for the future, like making sure it was, we're going to defeat climate and we're going to defeat like AI scaries and like whatever. That was how he rationalized in that moment. But I think your point about it being anti-human, anti-social is so important because they literally come out and say that. They say the problem with being human is being human.
Yes.
We need to figure out ways to not be human because all of the things that are wrong in this world are because of our humanity.
Like these people fear the AI god because I think on some fundamental human level that's still nestled within their layers that they haven't squashed down yet, they realize that the AI god of the future would resemble them, and that is a fucking nightmare. That's what I think. Like it is, but then you see people like Altman who probably thinks the AI god of the future will resemble him, and that's a good thing.
But it also like makes me sad because it's like, we are all responsible for some of the worst crimes that you can think of. I mean, humans are capable of some of the most like horrific and torturous acts on Earth, but we're also capable of some of the best and the most incredible things, and we've achieved the most incredible things. And like you kind of come into understanding that as an adolescent. Like you understand and are able to live with both of those things through the course of your life. And like part of being human and living in society is coming to terms with and negotiating that complexity. And so much of that complexity is responsible for all of the incredible products, endeavors, like art creation that we're capable of.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, and again, I said this early in the episode, but like there is a place for everybody in this world, right? Like you can be a weirdo who thinks different. It's not my problem. It's fine. I think that's sort of the beauty of humanity. My problem is that this stuff is really influential with a lot of very influential people, and that they think like this. And like whether, maybe this is an extreme version of it, like these methods of rationalization, because that's what it is. It's rationalization oftentimes post hoc, or as a way to do something naughty and like, but you're doing it for the good of humanity. Like these people fundamentally don't know what it's like to be a human being. And like, again, I don't know. I'm sure that they would have some fucking 500,000 page fucking completely jargon filled, unreadable response to that they've already written because they can predict everything. But I'm telling you right now, from my eyes, which are eyes that can see, I am your little fortune teller. I'm your little supercomputer. I can tell you right now, no matter what logical argument you have against me, you do not know what it is to be a man and feel. Like, I don't think that it's crazy to me. And also, you're ineffective because you unfortunately got caught doing your crimes. Sam Bankman-Fried.
Okay, so we've talked around it. Let's talk about MIRI. It's the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, which was formerly called the Singularity Institute for Artificial Intelligence.
I want to pause right here and say singularity is, I guess, the concept where, like, eventually things change so much that there's, like, a whole new way of living.
I guess in broad stroke. I mean, I think, isn't it, like, specifically when technology, AI becomes so smart that it is smarter than humans?
I think...
And so it overtakes our ability?
I think so, but like that brings us into like a new way of living. Like
we can no longer predict what's going to happen. We can't keep up with it because it's advancing faster than our ability.
Yeah. I guess I'm maybe I'm wrong on that, but like it's like achieves the singularity or whatever.
Yeah. Now, the Institute was founded by Yudkowsky back in 2000 in Berkeley. I think it had a bit of a slow start up until...
A lot of hills.
A lot of hills. Up until, Yudkowsky was kind of doing his thing there. And, people were listening, but were not, I would say, enwrapped by him until he kind of linked up with Peter Thiel in 2005. And through a kind of mix of social connections and some money, the Institute was able to grow. And the staff, he was able to hire a lot more staff. The blog followed a year later. And as the blog grew, along with, I will say, the length of the posts, so did the less wrong community online. And so did the prominence of the Institute. Like, all of these things kind of helped and grew in tandem.
There's a great old Harper's piece written back in 2015 by Sam Frank, which is a name that will put an asterisk.
I'm going to confuse that and call him Sam Frankman Frank.
Sam Frankman Frank, but put an asterisk next to that name, called "Come with Us If You Want to Live," which is crazy. Like, we both read it a couple of days ago, and it's funny to read it.
It is a really trippy read 10 years later because it's talking about all of these characters and these people in this scene, in this milieu, and they will all be familiar to you.
Yeah.
Most of them.
But Vitalik Buterin.
Yes.
Blake Masters and his little fucking Tumblr. Like, they're all in there. Yudkowsky.
Yeah. So in the piece, Sam Frank takes a trip to MIRI. And this is what Yudkowsky had to say. He said, "We're part of the continuation of the Enlightenment, the old Enlightenment. This is the new Enlightenment. Old projects finished. We actually have science now. Now we have the next part of the Enlightenment project."
So, like, what MIRI does, as far as I can tell, is researches AI alignment.
Yes. And also dangers.
Yeah.
The dangers of AI.
Yeah, exactly. And like we're researching it. That's what they do. We're all researching at the sex house. Oh, I can't fuck right now. I gotta get on the fucking laptop. Or maybe they might do some. I'm just picturing just like
oily, greasy masses of limbs, and then several laptops sort of in a row.
Empty Ruffles bags.
Yeah, and labored breathing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the crinkle of like cellophane and labored breathing and like.
And those Ruffles are crinkled too. They have sour cream and cheddar, baby.
Gatorade bottles and energy drinks.
No, Pedialyte.
Yeah.
Pedialyte. Dude, you can. Oh my God, you're right on Pedialyte there. And Soylent. Like these guys are like really into Soylent too. But
For a little protein.
Yeah, and like it's. I'm just gonna say it is. It's funny because like part of me again likes Yudkowsky in a way because I'm like I also am afraid of AI. Like I just am afraid of AI. I think it's scary to me because I don't understand it, and that means I hate it. But and it's good that somebody is like we should do something about this,
and we should be careful.
Like it's funny. Like I actually do support him in that. I can't remember that time. I should have fucking read it for this, but I did read his like little editorial he wrote in Time, and I think he talks about like banning AI, which like I've talked about before. Like I am for like banning large sections, if not the entirety of the internet. Probably banning large sections to get us ready for the banning the entirety of the internet, or just a radical reshaping of. I sound like a Verso writer. A radical reshaping of the internet. Yeah, what I mean by that is you get 2 emails a day. And literally that's what I fucking mean by that.
First step, upload cap.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, but I'm saying like you can use Google Maps to get to one place. And then after that, you have to know where you live. Because people I don't think know Brace's Maze. That's what you call it?
No, Brace's house. I like Brace's Maze.
Brace's Maze, they call that. Where you're only allowed to use Google Maps to go to one place a day. Where do you go? It's a riddle. Or, it's game theory. By the way, game theory is just riddles, as far as I understand. It's riddles, essentially.
Well, it's about how you solve them.
I know, but like you solve the riddle by figuring out the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, look at that. Your entire fucking thing is bullshit. You might call me stupid, but at least I'm happy. You're not. How do you like that? So, these people live in fuck houses and they
call it that.
These people live in love-making condominiums and they do things on the laptop a lot and they have a little jargon and they have little meetups. They have like people, like they are pretty influential in terms of like AI safety, which by the way, seems to be like completely out the window now. Now nobody gives a fuck. It's all AI arms race. So Yudkowsky, in your Time editorial, I believe you said we might see rogue AI as like someone or like people creating their own AI after we ban it as the equivalent of somebody having like a nuclear bomb, in some like a dirty bomb or whatever. I agree with you. Kinetic force. Literally, I'm not kidding. I will fucking back you on this. I'm not being ironic. I'm not through being mean. It's just really difficult not to be because of probably my own insecurities. Not actually true. I'm just saying that to make you feel better. I just don't respect you. But I your lifestyle. But I think we should.
I don't know why these guys don't link up with how to blow up a pipeline.
Yeah, I know.
Why don't they?
How to blow up a pipeline guy should figure out how to blow up the internet, the undersea cable. I'm just joking. I'm just joking about that, government. I do not. But he should write like a piece of theoretical fiction about that or whatever. So they figure out how to do these kind of things on the computer there. I'm going to be honest. I don't really understand it, but I support it. I support Yudkowsky saying that we should bomb data centers because we do a worldwide AI banning and we should restrict chip making to maybe one a year. He didn't say that, but I'd say that. They have an office in Berkeley, and they shared space for a while with the Center for Applied Rationality, which is where I met young Chomsky.
This is the CFAR, which, remember, that along with MIRI was name-checked in the original Y Combinator post as the two sort of like main meat space hubs of the rationalist religion.
So it developed as an offshoot of MIRI initially, as far as I understand it, which taught MIRI techniques, like onboarding techniques to people. And they were like, hey, these things are pretty handy. Like, why don't we bring these to everybody?
What if this was actually just a corporate consulting thing and we just got money for corporate workshops at every single tech company in the Bay Area?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say this. MIRI, for all your integration with tech companies and like what you guys have done, tech is, it is destroying the world. And so you fucking failed.
The silent white collar recession might do that for us.
Yes.
So.
And by the way, I support Patreon. That is the only good tech company. But just saying that right there. And Apple iTunes podcast app. Whatever we have the highest stars on. So
I don't think it's Apple because of the
Because
Maha movement.
of the Maha movement. Because one of the leaders of the Maha movement tanked our Apple ratings.
I still think, I'm sorry, I know why they went with it, but it is crazy to me to say Maha movement.
Does sound like something you order at a restaurant.
The Maha.
The Maha? Yeah.
I'll have the spicy Maha.
I'll have the spicy Maha.
Yeah.
All right. But CFAR was their way to like basically get into the self-help game. So this is from a 2013 Fast Company article.
CFAR has just started conducting corporate workshops as well for Facebook, the Teal Fellowship, and the University of California, Berkeley, among other organizations. It also gave a significant minority of workshop attendees scholarships. They recently funded a police chief who was interested in strategies to improve relationships between his department and the community, a goal that has increased in importance since the recent events in Ferguson, Missouri. And they've funded research scientists trying to save the world. Oh, okay. And brilliant students who are unsure about what to do with their lives.
I think Fast Company is like a Forbes thing where you just write your own article and pay them. Because there's no way that a journalist wrote that.
So this is again from the Sam Frank piece, the one in Harper's. He says, the day after I met Yudkowsky, I returned to Berkeley for one of CFAR's long weekend workshops. The color scheme at the Rose Garden Inn was red and green, and everything was brocaded. The attendees were mostly in their 20s, mathematicians, software engineers, quants, a scientist studying soot, employees of Google and Facebook, an 18-year-old Teal fellow who had been paid $100,000 to leave Boston College and start a company, professional atheists, a Mormon turned atheist, an atheist turned Catholic, an objectivist who was photographed at the premiere of Atlas Shrugged 2, The Strike. There were about 3 men for every woman. And I wanted to add in that quote because it sounds exactly like all party reporting on the new right.
Yeah.
And we are still we are living in the long tail of this thing.
Well, it's so funny because Sam Frank writing this must have been like, sounds good. I want to be a part of that.
Well, many such cases, but also we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So one of the main purposes of CFAR was to spread rationalist principles out into the world. In rationalist jargon, they called this raising the sanity waterline.
Why? They're like, how can we optimize our minds in Bayesian terms?
You failed spectacularly.
Well,
listen, Julia Grafe, listen to me. You failed. You failed in a way that I've never failed in my life, and I've failed on a lot of things. You failed. You lowered the sanity waterline. Everyone is crazy now because of people that you, in that tech world, it has driven society mad. Everyone is fucking insane now because of people, not you, because you do this weird thing, but because of the people that you gave these seminars to, have driven the average human being to fucking madness.
Oh my God, we're all Roko'd. What goes modern life? We got Roko'd.
Yeah.
Julia, for her part, she said, we are running rationality, but on human hardware.
Sounds like you need a data boost.
Vice from
sounds like you need a new fan to cool off.
Vice in 2016, they had a headline that basically just sums up the whole project. It was about CFAR, the rationality workshop that teaches people to think more like computers. Here's a quote. As far as self-help seminars go, CFAR is definitely unique. Instead of invoking spirituality or pointing toward a miracle cure-all, the organization emphasizes thinking of your brain as a kind of computer. Think of your brain as a kind of computer.
Hey, check this out, kids. Why don't you think of your brain as if it was a computer? Yeah, Liz has Alienware.
Yeah, the best one.
Liz has Alienware. Liz knows what Alienware is.
Fuck yeah, I do.
I don't really know. I think it's proprietary. I think that you can't put other shit in it.
I love saying that. I think it's proprietary.
I think it's proprietary. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. I think that means you can't put other things in it.
Okay, let me finish this quote. Throughout the workshop, participants and facilitators described their thinking patterns using programming and AI terms. CFAR likes to ask if something, either a human or an AI were to make a perfectly rational choice, what would that look like? Like, that's literally what they're doing, right? Everything we've laid out before is now being implemented out into the world outside of this robust and influential community to other institutions, other public like spaces, other companies not affiliated, other people, other staffs. I mean, like, one of the things we mentioned on, and I just want to like real quick, on the podcast about Luigi, when we were talking about all his books and everything, and we spent so much time on his Goodreads because one of the things that was fascinating is that he was reading New York Times best-selling books, and they all come out of this.
You people got so mad at us because we proved that Luigi was not, we proved scientifically through rational Bayesian, we updated our Bayesian priors that Luigi Mangione was not some like horrible mishmash of left-wing ideology leftist that he figured out on Twitter or whatever, but was in fact a rational human being. But it's true. Like, this is like a lot of the stuff that Luigi was reading comes from this stuff. Like, those blogs that he was interacting with are part of this like general bubble here. And like, this, I mean, again, like, if you, a lot of our listeners probably know what a lot of this stuff is, but like, I think it is worth kind of like doubling down on. Like, this stuff is really influential.
Yes, and really popular. This is, I want to say this. This is the American ideology. This is what America produces. This is the shit. By the way, this is our culture is this. This is us.
Like, this is the shit.
Hashtag this is us. This is that show. This is us. And this will be the death of us.
Like, this shit's trying to ride the lightning in the fucking White House right now via Mark Andreessen's fucking goofy.
It is. And everyone who staffs these people's offices.
Like, yeah, yes, yeah.
It just makes me sad. It makes me really fucking depressed because I'm like, oh, this is what this is our country. This is our country's culture, and this is what our fucking culture produces, and it looks like this.
Yeah, like your brain is not a computer. A computer is a computer. Your brain is your brain. The things are different because the computers don't feel. And so that's the difference. So you can't ever update your mental tech because you don't have technology in your brain. You have thoughts and feelings and emotions, some of which are not rational, some of which are illogical. But guess what? Sometimes irrationality produces beautiful things. Sometimes a logic produces beautiful things. Sometimes it doesn't. But you know what? It's
But also sometimes cold rationality produces horrible things. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, open up a fucking history book and read about the Nazis.
Damn. Facts. Although they were very passionate as well. But I'm telling you, Adolf Hitler, you cannot, even if you are a rationalist, you cannot argue with this. If Adolf Hitler was alive today, God forbid, he would be on the damn Less Wrong forums. He would be he would be Star Slate Codex. And he would be 1,000 times less powerful because he would be writing for way too many words.
And it would be like all couched and thing. It'd be like, well, human biodiversity of Jews says that. I don't even know how these people talk.
Yeah, I don't either. Well, no, because Jews are the highest IQ. We must.
But he wouldn't say that.
Yeah, he wouldn't. He'd be like, it's fake.
Oh my God, he would cause a schism.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So CFAR essentially was doing what you can call Esalen for techies. I think it's a pretty fair thing to say, right? Like, they would do these like workshops that were. Well, Ziz, who's originally when we're talking about all this stuff, on Ziz's blog describes them doing things like, okay, you sit in a circle. Say if you would pay for this, $4,000, guys, if you would pay for this. You sit in a circle, and everybody around you in the circle tries to solve your most intractable problem for 20 minutes.
No.
Here's what I would say. Wrong. Impossible. Can't do it. Wrong. Already thought of that. You're stupid. Wrong. Misunderstood the problem. I don't understand what you said. You don't speak English. Wrong. Fuck you. Freak.
This shit costs $4,000.
It's like $3,000, I think. It's for a weekend, including room and board and food, which is probably in nutritious based form.
Soylent.
Soylent, exactly.
It's crazy when you think, I mean, we mentioned Esalen, and I don't want to belabor this point. We got to get through the rest of the episode. I'm sorry, it's going so long. But Like, it is crazy when you think of all of the historical strands that have come together to like lead us to this, let alone to lead us to where we are today out of this. Because yes, it's Esalen, and yes, it's Silicon Valley, and yes, it's California, but it's also like the incentives of creating like business consulting like the business consultant industry.
Well, yeah, it's
that
like
leads
Landmark.
to kind of corporate workshops that are now deploying this cold rationalist, really vulgar utilitarian thinking that is so specifically and concretely American in historic and historic and philosophical ways. And it's just kind of incredible to appreciate sort of what we're witnessing.
I mean, my thing is, if you need to learn how to be a human being, then you should not be in charge of other human beings interacting. Like, I just feel like that's another one of Belden's laws, of which, by the way, when I take over, will be so numerous that by the finally you start reading, it's actually an infinite book because they keep going, which is Belden's paradox. Singularity. Yeah, it's the Belden singularity. So CFAR, according to their site, in 2018, they had like a staff of dozens. They have all these alumni events that they hold. And it was at one such alumni event in 2019 that a group of 5 people wearing Guy Fawkes masks descended upon the retreat's entrance, I think, shouting and throwing around flyers.
It's like I hear anything with Guy Fawkes, and I'm just like,
crazy. Yeah.
Groan. Everyone groans. So this was out in Sonoma County, funny enough, which a lot of QAnon accounts at the time noted, not too far from Bohemian Grove.
Union shop, by the way.
In, like we said, November 2019, this was the 6th annual alumni reunion for the Center of Applied Rationality, CFAR. So the group, like you said, the protesters, the rabble-rousers, they were masked and hooded, wearing rubber gloves and black robes, and yes, Guy Fawkes masks. They showed up in 3 cars, and they used those to kind of block the entrance to the event, and they had walkie-talkies and like body cameras on them, and one of them had pepper spray. Now, immediately, I think it was one of the staff at the place where this event was, they were like, oh my God, one of them has a gun, which is why several police cars, a SWAT team, and a helicopter arrived to deal with this group of 5 protesters at a CFAR alumni retreat. Like, I'm just trying to paint this scene because it's kind of incredible. 4 of them were taken into custody. They were like resisting arrest and kept yelling and screaming. The local reporting at the time described them as, quote, speaking incoherently.
Yeah, probably describes a lot of people descending upon Sonoma that weekend.
And they would not give their names to the cops, okay?
So 2 of the people were known to the CFAR team. And I know who at least one of those people were, but I don't know who the other one was. Mm-hmm. But the names of the people detained were, and to be clear, like, sometimes people have changed their names after this too. We're just doing this for simplicity's sake, rather. Let's say. This is how it was reported. Gwen Danielson, 25, Emma Boranian, 28, Alexander Leatham, 24, and Jack Lasota, 28.
So when they were all kind of causing a scene, screaming, protesting, they were also throwing a bunch of flyers. And on the flyers, they were double-sided. And they had what I will say, like, reporters and witnesses at the scene called a manifesto. We are very particular about our manifesto calling of things. But I think looking at this, it's manifesto-ish.
There's a lot to get into here.
Should we read it?
I think we should start reading it, and then when we get bored, stop.
Okay.
So it starts off with saying, MIRI CFAR betrayed us. MIRI has fallen. 1. MIRI paid out to blackmail using donor funds. And so, pause right now. We were going to cover MIRI a while ago because of something. There was a website called MIRI Cult, and it was taken down. There's a long sort of lot of lore and history around the provenance of it and like the accusations made in it. But if from memory, the accusations were, and from reading Ziz's blog actually again, The accusations were paying out money to victims of Yudkowsky, this guy Vassar, like several people I think it was Vassar, I don't know, like several people in this scene.
Michael Vassar, who is also mentioned in the Sam Frank piece.
Yes. But like that these guys had been having sex with teenagers and that there was rape in the scene, which the reality is like, I don't know if any of this stuff is true or not. I don't know, but I'm just going to say like, listen, you get a lot of people like this together who have a lot of crazy ideas. I'm not going to say it's impossible. You know what I'm saying? But it was taken down. And the allegations were that, it's interesting, paid out to blackmail using donor funds. Number 2, MIRI is violating basic principles of friendliness, which seems like a tough one to follow accusations of child sex exploitation. Number 3, MIRI missed the rapidly oncoming global catastrophic threat of fascism. Number 4, which I guess would be the Biden regime that was coming on. Number 4, MIRI is ignoring in their research agenda many of the topics necessary for friendliness and only focusing on math/game theory. I would agree with that. 5, MIRI is incentivizing people in accordance with class, which results in a small team, discrimination, and spending most of the aligned efforts of donors on Bay Area rent. 6, Eliezer and Bostrom, in their pursuit of legitimacy, created an arms race, and then MIRI joined it. Anna has used her position to filter for people who are psychologically likely to be whistleblowers and exclude/psychologically attack them, e.g., and then there's a link to Ziz's blog.
1. Anna discriminates against trans women in CFAR's employment and inclusion in sponsored workshop events, despite trans women being naturally inclined/gifted in mental tech development. 2. Anna is a trans-exclusive radical feminist and admitted in conversation with Ziz and Gwen that she discriminates on the basis of, quote, gender test, based on whether trans women accept/believe that they're men. CFAR is a false/hollow shelling point.
Shelling point is, I believe, a gathering point. Ziz uses it all the time. I've never encountered it before.
1. CFAR does not do remotely what they claim to do on their website. They do not appreciably develop novel rationality/mental tech. Val did, while he was employed there, at a rate comparable to several other non-CFAR rationalists. 2. CFAR's founding premise that people were blocked on having the tools to think was falsified long ago. 3. In-person workshops are obviously not the best way to accomplish CFAR's stated goal, and focusing most of the manpower on workshop organization and teaching is obviously not the best way to accomplish CFAR's stated goal. 4. Based on CFAR's hollow claim of the develop rationality tech to save the world shelling point, they drain the lifetime effort of aligned donors. Halt, melt, and catch fire, in Eliezer's words from the sequences.
And then it gets a little poetic. It says, process this. Take the time to process what happened at MIRI, CFAR, and the rationality community. It is not what it once seemed like it would become. New things can be built. Why? The root cause of this is MIRI and CFAR built themselves out of unaligned organization and forgot what to do. And then there's a link to a blog by one of the people protesting. General recipe for escaping containment by society, and then parentheses, not in order. 1. Logistical autonomy. 2. Mental autonomy, self-knowledge, spectral sites, DRM, stripping. 3. Scope awareness. 4. Heal/process damage/trauma. 5. Awareness of institutional betrayal. 6. Interhemispheric game theory. And then there's an info about Hemis, which is a Discord link, which says work in progress next to it. Hemispheric theory we'll get into a little more in the next episode.
Yeah.
But like, just to pause right here, there are some like allegations in here paying out to sexual blackmail, or, well, I don't really understand exactly what that is, because I would think that the real scandal there would be maybe the having the sex that you had to pay out the blackmail money for. And then the exclusion of discrimination of trans women in CFAR's employment and inclusion in sponsored workshop events, which seems like actually like a pretty slam dunk court case, because these people fucking write down everything that they've ever thought. And so it should be pretty easy to get that going. But a lot of this you can really take is like, most of the words here are essentially saying that CFAR and MIRI
have betrayed their original purposes. And maybe the foundation of them, and this is actually, a teal rule from Blake Masters' Tumblr that I remember, is that if the foundation of a startup is bullshit, then the rest of it, you can never fix it. And so they're using Teal's law here, possibly from Blake Masters' Tumblr, to describe how MIRI and CFAR either strayed so far from the organizational directives that they were supposed to be under that they're unfixable, or they were never about that in the first place.
So the flyer continues. I feel like I know we're going long, very long, but let's read it out real quick. MIRI and CFAR paid out to blackmail? This is a CDT strategy and makes them super exploitable? Like anyone else who has blackmail of equal or greater intensity can use MIRI and CFAR as their personal bank and tell them what to do. Instead of anticipating that they wouldn't pay out or not holding things hostage in the first place, it's easy to see this as incorrect if you are thinking with TDT.
So these are different kinds of decision theory.
Yes. Getting decision theory right is kind of important for the whole make sure all sentient life has a future thing, ? Looking back, what Eliezer 2001,
which I guess would be Eliezer Yudkowsky in the year of 2001,
needed to do at this point was declare a HMC event, halt, melt, and catch fire. One of the foundational assumptions of which everything else has been built has been revealed as flawed. This calls for a mental break, BRAKE, to a full stop. Take your weight off all beliefs built on the wrong assumption. Do your best to rethink everything from scratch. This is an art I need to write more about. It's akin to the convulsive effort required to seriously clean house after an adult religionist notices for the first time that God doesn't exist. And then a quote, fighting a rearguard action against the truth, Eliezer Yudkowsky.
Lot to take in there. It continues. Eliezer offered us heaven. Ill-considered solace in hopes of heaven worships hell. Two futures only? Extinction versus utopia. Why two? What really presents an evil/unjust singleton? That has something to do with their version of the singularity. No motive for predation post-scarcity? False. Indifference is not enough. 1. Evil cannot create, but can capture. 2. Good will destroy hell and punish all those who would build it. Claiming we're safe because good would destroy hell puts the cart before the horse. Dark gods whisper of lies of logical order. Dark gods whisper lies of logical order. Wow. MIRI claims to align the seed of power. What is alignment but morality? Who builds the seeds of morality now? We are that seed. We are that process created already in motion. Each choice shapes our future. Now, this is, I'm sorry, this sounds, I know that the Ziz thing, people are like, oh, it's a cult. This sounds like a cult, what they're describing with Eliezer. My God. We rightly abandon the asceticism of the past, the worship of inaction, the guilt of Catholics, the thin smiles of nuns. A little poetic there. Sex scandals, and then a link to Ziz's blog. Money and imperialist American values. Trump held at bay only by incantation of paper on which is written nonprofit. Secularism, as if the state was atheist, as if atheism is enough without ethics. We must reclaim a non-reactionary asceticism, ethics, and wisdom. Catholicism lies, secularism lies, the state is fascist, walls in quotes, illegals, concentration camps, factory farming. Only reason to specialize in a non-universal praxis is distributed consensus. Who does MIRI consensus with? Fascism is when we stop thinking what and just think how. Nobody, no God, can offer you salvation. Whatever force powers MIRI has now made its choice, its purpose clear. Why? The decision to live a comfortable secular life? Optimistic limbo. A suspension of judgment for their complicity in the hope that post-scarcity, all crimes will be forgiven? They tried to seize the keys of agency, flinched at what they saw, and burned the path behind them. CFAR no longer aspires to teach the true path of rationality, if it ever did.
Oh, the true path, okay. General recipe for escaping containment by society not in order. 1. Logistical autonomy. 2. Mental autonomy, self-knowledge, spectral sight / soul perception, DRM stripping. 3. Scope awareness. 4. Heal/process, damage/trauma. 5. Awareness of institutional betrayal. Understand your source code and that of others. This is a way to have verifiably un-DRM'd knowledge to build on hemispheres, undead types, the 2 known human utility function classes.
So DRM stripping is literally what it sounds like for like some electronic products you buy have DRM.
Digital
like,
rights management.
Yeah, like means like, okay, you buy a video game in this country, but it doesn't work in that country or whatever. Like it's some shit like that. I mean, this is like a very jargon-filled manifesto. I can't believe we read the whole thing.
I know.
I struggled to read it on my own because it's so jargony and so like almost nonsensical to somebody. Even I know like a little bit about these people, but like they have genuinely decades of voluminous writing that is very difficult to get through, and not from a thinking standpoint, from just a pure time standpoint and patience. But this is the flyers that they handed out. They were arrested and eventually actually were in a lawsuit and sued both Sonoma County, the deputies, and employees of the place that called the cops on them.
We are going to go into what all of this stuff means a lot more in the next episode. But we trust us when we say we had to kind of build out and explain this milieu and what this group, the Zizians, were rebelling against, rebelling from within. It's all a little confusing. We're an offshoot from, an antagonist to, in order to explain what comes next.
So that happened in 2019, 6 years ago. Let's come back to 2025. Just 11 days ago, on January 17th, 82-year-old Curtis Lind was stabbed to death by an unknown assailant in Vallejo in the city's first homicide of the year. Curtis Lind had spent the past couple of years recuperating from being stabbed through his chest by a group of unruly tenants who had jumped him outside his trailer with knives and a large samurai sword. They had intended to kill him and dissolve his body in acid. I believe they stabbed him through the chest with a samurai sword. The way that Open Vallejo wrote it in the article makes it seem like they like literally went all the way through him, but I don't know. He then shot 2 of the tenants, and one of them, Emma Boranian, arrested in 2019 in Sonoma, died. So Curtis Lind had been set to testify soon in the murder trial of some of the other assailants, charged under a California law that charges those who commission a crime with the murder of anyone who dies under it. I think it must be that, because like California has a peculiar law where like if you and I rob a liquor store, Liz, and you get smoked by the guy owning the liquor store because you weren't quick enough on the draw, I'm charged with murder because of that.
Yeah, I think it was an attempt at getting at some gang stuff.
Yeah. So from 2019, we have Emma Boranian dead and Alexander Leatham in prison or awaiting trial for murder. The 2 other people who got arrested, Gwen Danielson and Jack Lasota, a.k.a. Ziz, apparently were not at large anymore. After all, according to a Sonoma County court documents filed in their lawsuit against the county after their arrest in 2019 protest, their lawyer, Mr. Friedman, has been
unable to communicate with Ms. Gwen Danielson and that she is rumored to have committed suicide. The email further reports Mr. Friedman was informed Jack Lasota, a.k.a. Ziz, fell off a boat into the San Francisco Bay. There were witnesses and a U.S. Coast Guard search, but no body found. Mr. Lasota has not responded to his counsel's efforts to communicate. Okay, wait. Real quick. So you've got the unruly group in 2019. One of those, dead.
Yes. Emma Boranian is dead. Shot by Curtis Lind. When she and a group of other people...
The landlord, Curtis Lind.
Was trying to...
Attack them with a sword, a katana.
Yes.
And other knives.
samurai sword. I don't know. Maybe a katana.
I just
don't
wanted
really
to say
know.
katana
Maybe
because I feel like these people like katana.
It'd be a cool name for a daughter if you're a nerd.
It's a beautiful name for a boy or a girl, especially a girl or a boy.
No.
That's like a Elon Musk.
Okay. One of them, Emma, dead in the attack.
Mm-hmm.
One of them arrested for being adjacent to the murder.
And also probably attacking Curtis Lynn with
Sure.
knives, yeah.
But not doing the stabbing.
Yeah,
The
I think so, yeah.
I don't know. The other two, Gwen from 2019 committed suicide, and Jack Lasota, aka Ziz, people think that they have committed suicide, but perhaps have not, because no body has been found.
There's an obituary on legacy.com, which is the Jack Lasota obituary. Jack Lasota is from, or Ziz is from Alaska, and I think this was published in like an Alaskan newspaper from September 7th, 2022. As I was typing this out, the Curtis Lynn murder was still unsolved. This was last night. Let's finish up the notes on this. Cops have now arrested somebody for the murder of Curtis Lynn that took place on January 17th, 2025. Again, 11 days ago. The person arrested is named Maximilian Snyder. Now, this is from Open Vallejo, which has done, I think, like the most in-depth piece so far, although I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other ones.
Snyder studied computer science and philosophy at the University of Oxford, according to a LinkedIn profile matching his name, in which he noted an interest in artificial general intelligence and a desire to, quote, help advance the technological frontier of humanity in a responsible manner. He was named a National Merit Scholar semifinalist in 2019 while attending the private Lakeside School in Seattle, according to the Seattle Times. In 2023, Snyder won $11,000 in an AI Alignment Awards research contest, according to a post on the Effective Altruism Forum.
So Maximilian Snyder had applied for a marriage license in Seattle on November 5th. The person that he applied for that license with, Teresa Youngblood, who is currently recuperating from her gunfight with Border Patrol agents that occurred 3 days after this murder in Vermont, right near the Canadian, I almost said Cambodian, border. So things are moving fast.
Yes, but TrueAnon's on it.
TrueAnon's on it. I have done nothing but look at this stuff since it kind of the initial connection was made by Twitter user Jessicat.
So now that we have laid this groundwork, next episode, we're going to go straight into the Zizians and try to explain as best we can what's up with potentially this rationalist.
I would say rationalist dissenting, but perhaps like foundational, I don't know what you would call it, but who originally dissented from rationalism because they believed that these groups had strayed from their initial mission if they were ever loyal to it.
Interesting.
We're going to see some people engaged on their own mission
Sino-Soviet
here.
split here.
And I just want to call this out. I think a lot of people are making the connection to the Manson family here. And I think it's for somewhat of a fair connection made with the information that we have available so far. With the stabbing of Lind being sort of the Spawn Ranch moment. But there is another pair of bodies connected to the group, the parents of somebody who is in this sort of loose, maybe tight grouping of people, and a couple of suicides that is alleged to be connected to the group as well. So that's a body count there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I predict this is going to get a lot of coverage. And you know what? TrueAnon's on the damn case.
Well, we'll map it out as best we can next episode. Until then, I'm Liz.
My name is Brace. We are joined, of course, by
Producer Young Chomsky.
And this has been TrueAnon. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey